Hello, everyone. Good morning once again. Um, my name is Prateek, and I'm here for the final information session that we are hosting with PayU for the virtual hiring drive, which WiT and PayU is doing together. For this one, I have with me Sachin Garg, and I think we saved our best for the last in that way. So the session will be a little different than a few others that we've done in the past. But before I go into those details, I would first like to welcome Sachin. So Sachin, who is here with me, Sachin Garg, he's the head of data sciences for PayU. He has around 20 plus years of experience. So Sachin started his professional journey actually after getting a PhD in computer science engineering from Duke University. He's worked as a research scientist at Bell Laboratories in New Jersey for the first decade. Then he headed a machine learning group at Yahoo Labs, which was followed by founding Big Data Labs for American Express. Interestingly, next came two unsuccessful stints in startups. Now, I don't see that as an introduction in a lot of introductions I've done, unsuccessful stints, but it's pretty nice, Sachin, that you put it out there. One which was an AI-based fashion tech startup, and the other was a food tech. And after that, he's kind of joined PayU. So welcome, Sachin, firstly. Thank you for doing this. I'm pretty fascinated by what you've done till now in terms of experience. Anything you have to say, which I haven't probably covered here?
Thank you, Prateek. Thank you for the kind introduction. No, you've said it very well and very generous. Thank you so much.
Okay. So for all those who joined us, the way we will go about today is that we'll have Sachin who will go through some of the details of PayU. So essentially, we have a slide deck which Sachin will cover over the next few minutes. For all those who are here who want to ask questions, you can just type in your questions in the YouTube comments section, and Sachin will be able to take them as and when he feels like during the course of his presentation. Immediately after this, our hiring process will start. So all those who have registered interest will receive an intimation in some form or the other in this session. So over to you. And I hope you have an interactive session for everyone who's joined in.
Thank you, Prateek. Thanks again for the nice introduction. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing very well this morning. Hope you're all safe. Your loved ones, your near dear ones are also safe. And we're doing all the right things with respect to social distancing, masks, etc. So with that, this, like Prateek mentioned, this is a slightly different session. I'm going to walk you through a deck, but my only connect with you guys is through a comment section I see. So rather than this being a tedious monologue, it'll be great if you guys just, whenever you have questions in your mind, just type it out and I'll see them and I'll take them as they come. So the primary objective today is to familiarize yourself, everybody, with PayU. And, you have had some sessions before, but this is sort of a broader picture of, what PayU is all about globally. So thanks again for joining me this morning. Just give me one sec. Okay, so who are we? Just before I begin, right, as Prateek mentioned, I have been in this data science space for a while, and I have, tried my hands in different domains, ad and search at Yahoo, in fashion tech, in food tech. One of the domains that I really, really, truly enjoy is the fintech domain, and especially in the context of India, right? This fintech is really something that's truly, truly changing the world, and it's slightly different. It's not that I'm saying, hey, look, ad search is bad or less fruitful, but it's just that money, earning, spending, borrowing touches each of us so deeply that this fintech space is very, very exciting as far as I'm concerned. So PayU is a payments and a fintech business of Process. Now, Process is essentially an Amsterdam-based entity. It used to be called Naspers, so I can use Naspers and Process sort of interchangeably. And this entity not only invests in fintech, but also has large investments across the board in edutech, in food tech, etc. So, PayU is a wholly owned subsidiary of Process. And Process also has fully owned OLX as a business. Also has investments in Swiggy. Also has investments in many world markets across edutech, food tech, fintech, etc. Byju's, for instance, as well. Uh, so just like a multinational global company, we do have a vision and a mission, and the vision is quite simple. PayU globally, right? We want a world without financial borders where everyone can prosper. And our presence is in 20 countries across Asia, Latin America, Middle East, Central and Eastern Europe, and Africa. Not as much in the US, but the goal for PayU is to be in those geographies, in those countries which are growing. So you can see that we are present more in the developing world as opposed to developed world. Uh, how do we reach our vision? We basically, want to seize the opportunity to give people in growth markets greater access to financial services. So if you look at people's life, right, we earn, we spend based on our needs. Sometimes our earnings are not sufficient to provide for our needs. People get married, people buy homes, people buy cars, which means they need to borrow. So helping them across this life cycle journey of making their financial needs to be met is our mission to reach our vision. I don't know if people are still joining. It's hard. I have no way to tell who's on the line. So like I mentioned earlier, please feel free to stop me and just type up your questions and I'll take them as they come. I'm assuming no questions so far. Okay, so this is a lengthy slide and I'll probably not go word by word, but I'll tell you what we do. And in some sense, some of you may have heard this name PayU, some of you may not. But what I can tell you is it very likely touches your life or has already touched your life. And the reason is, unless and until you're not doing financial transactions online, which is the only way PayU probably hasn't touched your lives. So PayU has two basically arms. One that supports payments. Anywhere you do online payments, PayU is present. And like I said, not just in India, but across the world. The second arm, as I mentioned, is to enable people to borrow so they can take credit and fulfill their needs. Payments-wise in India, right? PayU Payments India actually is the largest online payments business. We process more than a billion transactions a year. There are more than 70 local payment methods. It could be debit card, credit card, net banking, UPI, etc. There are more than 350,000 merchants online who are PayU's clients. And if you're buying something at Swiggy, if you're buying something at Zomato, if you're buying something at Amazon or Flipkart, PayU's there behind enabling that payment. PayU by far India has the largest market share as far as online payments go. Some of our competitors are BillDesk, Razorpay, some names you may have heard of. And that's the reason I mentioned that while you may or may not have heard of PayU, if you're doing online shopping, most likely PayU is at the back end enabling that payment. On the credit side, we have a large set of offerings, right? And I'll mention there's an app called Lazy Pay. So if you don't know about it, you can download it. It basically enables you to take a small 15-day loan without any interest. So for instance, if you're shopping at Swiggy, anybody who shops at Swiggy or ordering food at Swiggy, each of those transactions come to Lazy Pay. And then Lazy Pay says, hey, I think this customer is worthy. We can enable them to take a loan. So while shopping at Swiggy, with Lazy Pay, you can just order your food, click a button, no OTP required, and you don't pay that money right now. You pay that 15 days later without any interest. So it's enabling short-term 15-day credit as a one product. It also has a UPI feature where you can go and scan, take your phone, go offline, pay at a store using UPI, and that too is not payable today. You have a 15-day window to pay that off. It also enables cash loans up to 1 lakh. So if you have a need that goes beyond, ordering food, buying a ticket, etc. You can also take that from PayU Finance. We also have another product called PaySense, which enables larger loan sizes, which are cash loans that you can get up to rupees 5 lakhs. So basically, it's catering to millennials who transact online, buy food online, order tickets, watch movies through Book My Show, etc. So these are the two main arms of PayU globally. Once again, I'll reiterate, please feel free to stop me and ask questions as they come along. So as I mentioned earlier, we are part of this group called Naspers, which is now named as Prosus. And this is a 100 billion group. It's sort of like, if you've heard of investment bank or SoftBank, it's like a SoftBank of Europe, headquartered in Amsterdam. And like I mentioned earlier, owns food tech, fintech, edutech investments. PayU globally is also headquartered in Netherlands. Our CEO Laurent actually sits out of Dubai because it's easier for him to travel across these countries where PayU is present. So overall, we process 12,000 crore volume monthly. This is a large payments platform that we keep uptime of 99.98 or greater for 2 years. Okay, I get a question from Ravjeet. Revenue on finance products is via interest. So the first product I mentioned, which is Lazy Pay, which gives you a 15-day credit, there is no revenue. The revenue is basically we help our customers be on board through this 15-day credit, and those customers who go on to take larger ticket size loans, that's where the interest comes in, and that's the revenue model. So on the convenience product, which is what we call Lazy Pay, the company doesn't have a revenue model. We don't make money on that. It's more to give convenience to customers and then have them transition to interest paying other loans that actually give a revenue to PayU Finance. Thank you for your question. Okay. So like I mentioned, we process tons of transactions, more than 2 million a day, more than 3.5 lakh merchants. You probably shopped at Big Billion Day sale, the big festival sale. The volumes are high enough that we need to maintain something like 1,800 transactions per second architecture in our payments platform. I have another question from Neeraj. Thank you, Neeraj. The question is, just one sec. Does PayU carry credit risk for these loans? Yes, PayU carries credit risk for loans. And that's the business, right? That's where our data comes in. That's where we use our data to figure out how risky a customer is, what is their willingness to pay, what is their ability to pay. People who have the ability to pay and the willingness to pay are the best customers, but it's a risk-based decision that we make. Okay. Again, you can see in this chart that PayU is present in 36 markets, both serving the payments needs as well as the credit needs across the globe. And as I mentioned earlier, not as much present in North America, but the dots tell you where we are present. India by far is the biggest market for PayU globally, and growing at a pretty rapid rate as well. Okay, so let me give you a sense of what the business is, and let me talk first about the payments business. So our payments business is essentially divided into segments based on our customers. So when we say enterprise payments, these are large customers that are held by PayU in terms of online payments. These include Amazons, Flipkarts, Dunzos of the world. SMB payments are those online merchants which are small. It could be a boutique store selling online. It could be a flower shop. It could be antique store that's selling online, etc. So that's SMB. Omni-channel basically means that we are now expanding into offline as well, not just online. So imagine you go to a store, a grocery store, and that grocery store accepts payments online. Sorry, doesn't accept payments online, but because PayU has enabled them, while you shop, using their mobile phone, they can actually send you a link to your mobile, and that link is then used for you to make that payment. So that's one aspect of what we call omnichannel. Another large portion is on BBPS, meaning the bill payment system, whether you're paying your electricity bills or your water bills or any other sort of government entity bills. Um, and then there's also a credit business that payments has. This credit business mostly caters to merchants, so small merchants who need credit to run their business. In these business verticals, we have engineering, we have IT, we have product, we have operations, we have data, that there are horizontal functions supporting these businesses. Likewise, on the PayU Finance side, so one of the things that Process and Naspers does very well is grow inorganically. What I mean by that is, it being an investment arm, we really look to kind of say, hey, this is an area we are lacking in the market, and hence, let's acquire a company that's a market leader in this space. So to that end, like I mentioned, Lazy Pay was a product that was catering to customers who had small loan needs, right from about 10,000 to a lakh. But we were not, at that time, we were not catering to larger cash loan needs. So PayU, in fact, merged with PaySense. So Lazy Pay and PaySense became a single entity. This was beginning of the year. And now we have a whole suite of products that go right from 10,000 rupee loan to 5 lakh rupee loan. Now, okay, one more question from Pratima. What are the database that PayU is using for transaction processing and storing customer data? Good question. So the set of databases that we use go from NoSQL to SQL, that actually are used in processing the data, processing and storing both customer data as well as actually processing the transactions. I hope that answered your questions. And there is extremely rigorous testing that is done to make sure that the scale and the uptime of these DBs are maintained to be able to process transactions in real time. Another question from Vigneshwar: being omni-channel, are all the customer data is in the same location or is separated based on the channels? Good question. So as far as processing this data is concerned, right, processing transactions for enterprise, processing transactions for omni-channel, processing transactions for SMB, the serving systems are sort of different, right? The DBs actually which serve the system, serve the transactions. But to be able to use the data, we actually have pipelines that bring all the data together into a single warehouse. So we have a data lake, we have a warehouse where all this data is brought together and then used for both analytics and our machine learning. How PayU is different from Paytm in terms of technology? Great question. So in fact, so I think some people, there is this notion that Paytm and PayU could be competitors. We do compete in certain space, but actually PayU enables Paytm as well. So if you are, let's say, loading your Paytm wallet through your debit card, it's quite possible that PayU, in fact, is making that transaction happen. So to bring your money, from the bank into your wallet. So, but in terms of technology, to be honest, I don't have a good handle on what backend technology Paytm uses. But I would say there would be similarities between how a transaction is processed, how backend databases are configured, etc. The key difference between Paytm and PayU is that PayU Payments is a B2B play, and Paytm is a B2C play. So PayU, in fact, doesn't have a direct linkage with consumer. So in that sense, the tech stack will probably be quite different as well in backend. Okay. Oh, okay. So coming back, and this is one thing I want to, kind of share, partly because it also captures one aspect of diversity, right? So when we grow by merging entities, different companies, the cultures are different, the way of working is different, software stack could be different, geographical location could be different. For instance, Patience was primarily based out of Mumbai, and LazyPay was primarily based out of Gurgaon and Bangalore. So there is a need to kind of include this mix of diverse set of people, diverse set of cultures together. And the leadership consciously decided to say, hey, rather than having each entity being separate, the working methodology we adopted was what we call pods. So we sort of said, we have functions when you're giving loans, right? We need to be able to collect on those loans. So that's a collections functions. We need to be acquiring customers, we need to be retaining them, we need to be managing them through the journey. That's something we called alpha. So these are pods that actually brought the people together from two different entities and then focused on a common business goal, whether it's collections, whether it's acquiring customers, whether it's about building a base that we can sell to, whether it's about automating the loan process, KYC, etc. And then also a new sort of business line we call Neo, where we are looking at how do we look to monetize our data, how do we look to bring other merchants on board where they can use our platform to advertise and to reach out to their customers, etc. So the thing that I wanted to mention here is that inclusion, given diverse set of populations that have come through a merger, leadership consciously tries to be very inclusive and take steps to make that inclusion happen. Okay, I have a couple of questions. Let me take those. How does PayU fund these 15 days loans? Do you earn revenue only, interchange fee and or penalty? Okay, good question, Neeraj. So PayU funds these loans through its own books, 15 days. And, imagine that the repayment cycle is 15 days, right? So in that sense, the amount outstanding is not that large, assuming people are paying back. And to your question, yes, there is an MDR. There is an interchange fee that PayU charges to the merchant, not to the customer. So let's say you ordered something on Swiggy. A small portion of that revenue that Swiggy is earning comes to LazyPay. I hope I answered that question. Another one from Pratima: how does PayU collect data for potential customers for credit? Okay, so credit is a B2C business. So we have apps, and when you download these apps, you give a set of permissions, and based on those permissions, we collect data from the app. So that's number one. And people have the choice of either giving the set of permissions or not. So that's number one. Number two, because it's a credit business, we also get data from bureau. So if you're applying for a loan, we do a bureau check. So that's the second set of data that we collect. And these are the two that largely sort of give us inputs. We have other data sources as well, but these are two main ones. Another question from Vigneshwar. And the question is, for ML and analytics, is the data pulled from distributed systems and processed? If so, how are the models trained and deployed in consideration to time and scalability? Yes. So let me give you a sense of how that's done. So we have, let's say, production systems which are processing transactions. Let's say you ordered in Swiggy, that transaction comes to LazyPay and being served out of the databases. Now, from these databases, like I mentioned, the data team, which I lead, we build pipelines to collect this data and bring it into a data lake. So largely we are on AWS. So this means, S3 buckets. And from there, we take this data from the data lake, and we have a warehouse that we bring this data to. Now, this warehouse serves two needs. One is for business analysts to actually look at the data, see how much people are defaulting, what is the retention rate of customers, etc., etc. So a lot of business analytics happens through this warehouse. As far as ML is concerned, machine learning model is concerned, I'll give you a specific example. So we actually use our payments data. So imagine we have a billion transactions, right? More than 200 million customers who are on payments, online payments. Now, because we are PayU Global, we are the same entity, we actually use that data for our credit needs. So imagine 200 million people, we have data on where do you spend, how much do you spend, when do you spend, etc. And we use that data to figure out, hey, what is your credit worthiness? What is the likelihood that you are risky? What is the likelihood that you default? So this is something we call a customer risk model. So we build the model using payments data. Then we use this model. It gets deployed, for real-time evaluation in our production system. So if you are, let's say, shopping at Swiggy, you're ordering food at Swiggy, and pardon me, I'm taking Swiggy as a repeated example, but so when you say order food, Swiggy actually sends us a ping in real time. Now that ping basically says, okay, you are trying to order, you meaning that mobile number is trying to order the food for such and such amount. We use our ML model to say, okay, the likelihood that you will pay back this is higher than a certain threshold, and they should be approved. So if that happens, and if you go to Swiggy, you'll see a lazy pay option towards the bottom. So if lazy pay thinks that you are a good customer for lazy pay, you should see that option in Swiggy, and then you have the option of pay by lazy pay. So hope I answered the ML question. And the models are trained, we use multiple types of techniques, including, tree-based models, logistic regression. We are also now experimenting with some of the deep learning models, etc., for risk, for propensity, for different type of use cases. Question from Preeti: how PayU manages the different security standards for payments in its globally used? Yeah. Great question. So first of all, privacy and security is of paramount importance, right? And there are rules which are region specific. For instance, Europe has GDPR rules, right? India also has privacy and security rules. And in fact, in India, a new legislation is likely to come soon, which will take India also closer to GDPR set of standards. So that's number one. Number two, for payments, right? Because we store very sensitive data, we have to be what is called as PCI DSS compliant, which means governmental RBI audits happen to make sure that our data is secure, etc. But by and large, to answer your question about global versus local, we do tend to follow global standards, but there are local laws that kind of govern and override some of the requirements as well. So Indian laws, if they have a certain requirement, for instance, no data that is processed in India can be stored anywhere outside of India's boundary. So those standards, override, and we use those standards as well. Another question from Saurabh: could you please give a brief overview of one of the ML business use cases in PayU and the impact it has made? Okay. So let me give you two: one on the payment side and one on the credit side. Now, if you look at credit business, right, the whole profitability, the whole viability of that business depends on how you pick the customers, how you determine who is likely to pay and who's willing to pay. Willing to pay, tends to be sort of fraud prediction, and likely to pay tends to be risk prediction. If you don't do these predictions well, your whole business can go kaput. So essentially, ML for risk and fraud prediction is at the heart of any credit business. And this is not something PayU, right? This has been done since ages. Any bank, any credit card business, ICA, take any bank, any lending business, they have to be doing underwriting, which is usually ML based. So there usually is some model that is doing these predictions. So for credit, it's the heart of the business for both risk and fraud. For payments, let me give you an example, right? Number one is, fraudulent transactions. So fraud prediction in, hey, this transaction is fraudulent because we know that this customer asks for refunds 10 times in a year, and just the customer tries to game the system. So being able to predict which transaction could be fraudulent is a lot of business value to the merchant and to the banks that PayU sits in the middle of. Another thing is, when you are transacting, these are called payment gateways. And this is not just one gateway, right? This is a distributed system with a bunch of gateways, servers, which actually help with the transaction success. Now, you probably have noticed the transactions fail sometime. There might be a timeout. You have used UPI, scan and pay. You know that sometimes transactions don't succeed. So being able to predict which gateway is likely to give you the most likelihood of transactional success is another ML model, as an example. So even in payments, right, fraud, predicting anomalies, predicting likelihood of success of a transaction, these are the typical use cases to enhance the business and payment side. Okay, Deepak's question: PayU fraud and risk analytics works from India or outside India? So PayU fraud and risk right now works out of India. We have presence in Gurgaon, Bangalore, and Mumbai. And for global, we also support some of the global, for instance, there's an ML model the team has developed for fraud prediction in European markets. Having said that, there are plans to kind of expand beyond and have data and ML teams sitting outside of India as well. Question from Vigneshwar: considering the Swiggy example, are the models being predicted in real time, or it's pre-calculated and stored in DB and the ping is to fetch from DB? Vigneshwar, great question. It's the latter right now. We do pre-calculate because we have a large base of 200 million, right? So we score all these 200 million customers and we put that in a cache, including yes or no decision, and also the limit assignment. So we might say that Vigneshwar is not risky, should be allowed to do lazy pay transactions up to a limit of 10,000. We do refresh our models. So we do retrain them, we do monitor their performance, and as performance degrades, we refresh them as well. And then secondly, there's always a continuous learning, continuous improvement based on creating new features, new data sources, etc. So that's always a ongoing exercise. Thank you, Vigneshwar, for the question. Okay, great. I think you guys are asking great questions, so please keep it up. Far better than me doing a monologue. But if there are no further questions, let me continue on the slide set. So this is, just to give you a sense of, PayU values, potential and performance. And there are multiple rewards, multiple types of rewards that PayU offers to appreciate the work that colleagues do. And PayU also believes in, giving out awards when the performance, when the accomplishments happen, not sort of wait out till the end of the year during the performance evaluation cycle. So moving on. Another question from Preeti: how PayU takes care of user experience since it has dependencies on third parties, banks? So the integration between banks and PayU, that has to be very robust for us to have that user experience finally to the end customer who's shopping online. So in that business, the way we do it is that's a very strong tech integration. In some cases, we have dedicated lines with banks, which make sure that things don't go over the public network. It's very reliable, etc. So multiple ways of integration with banks help us keep that experience. Another question: what's the frequency of scoring for pre-calculation? frequency of scoring for pre-calculation. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I think so there's no set frequency, to be honest. If you look at other domains, right? If you go to, let's say, Google's, Facebooks of the world, uh, many of them actually do set frequency. Every 15 days, every 2 days, every whatever, depending on the use case, they actually rescore or refresh the model based on the recent data. We don't do that typically in the credit business because the risk of refreshing and auto refresh in some sense is higher than monitoring the performance of the model and then seeing, okay, if the performance degrades, then let's refresh. And because in a credit risk model, right, a lot more is at stake than a Facebook post not being shown to the right set of people. That's why there's also what we have is something called a credit risk committee. So before we refresh and deploy a model, a set of assessment is made that, okay, the risk of refresh, like the model performance after refreshing is going to be beneficial to the business. So there's a step where we do look at intuitive, manual judgment as well before we actually auto refresh. And that's just how the business is. There's difference between industries where uh, credit businesses typically don't do auto refreshes, not that, at least in my view, what I have seen. And this is even more true if you go to global businesses. uh, and this is an example I keep telling people, right? If you go to the US, if you reject somebody because they are asking for a loan, the regulations require that you tell the customer why you rejected that loan. That's not something that's true in India. It might happen at some point. Now, for us to refresh that model, a lot of things change for that reason code, right? So if you refuse a loan to somebody in the US and you have auto refresh your risk model, the reason code of why you rejected loan also needs to be changed. So there are many sort of regulatory aspects also in the credit lending business which have to do about fairness and bias that guide that. We don't let machines decide uh, take all the decisions. Hope that answered your question. But I think I would say roughly 3 months is the average cycle where we end up refreshing the model for scoring. Okay, so I'll continue. I think I have talked about who are the biggest customers, and this is the reason I said unless and until you are not shopping online, it's quite likely that PayU touches your life in some way or the other. Okay, I probably will not go deeper into this, but I just wanted to say that, like all big companies, right, there are a set of values the company believes in, and there are multiple reasons for it. One is that it brings, a cohesive structure with respect to, how people behave, what they do, what are they expected to do in a company. Secondly, it also gives a consistent set of platform to evaluate people, to set expectations with respect to compensation increases, performance cycles, etc. So, PayU believes in 5 key principles: openness, integrity, collaboration, courage, and ownership. So, another question from Deepak: PayU develops CLTV models for their customers or mostly works for credit risk for them? Okay, so good question. We have just started our journey in building CLTV models. And the reason we didn't have that yet is partly because, both LazyPay and Paysons have been startups, and they have come a long way with respect to having a product now that is well accepted, has scaled in the market, and now is the time for us to kind of go deeper in ML and build CLTV models. But to give you a sense, the kinds of models we have risk models, we have models which predict fraud, we have models which predict which help with collections. So as an example, imagine every month end, we run a model. There are people who have their dues, EMI or whatever. So the model basically predicts, hey, who amongst these 100,000 customers is likely to pay back within a week? And those customers which we think are highly likely to pay back within a week, we don't actually pursue them through manual collection work, right? So they don't get a phone call saying, hey, your payment is past due, would you pay, etc. So that helps us in optimizing our collections workforce, which says, look, these folks will pay in a week, even though their payment is due. So like I said, risk models, fraud models, collections models. We also have, NLP based chatbot. When people have questions about, hey, how do I do my KYC when they're applying for a loan on the app, etc. We also have, one of the things we have done is we have created a contact graph, and this is, something we ask users permissions for. So, if the user gives us permission to collect their contact book, for instance, we get that from the app, and then we have created a contact graph. So, and this is the homophily premise, right? If I am risky, if I'm not risky, and I'm connected to 10 other people who are not risky, another person who's connected to all of us is also not likely to be risky. So, we use these so-called graph-based features in our models as well. Great questions. I'm glad you guys are, because data science is what I can tell you best. So keep them coming. Okay, I think maybe what I'll do is, these are self-explanatory. Openness is something we definitely, believe in. No hierarchy. You approach your managers are very approachable, by and large, and this is a culture that company really thrives upon. So it's not, it's not like you can't talk to anybody in the company without anybody's permission, etc. I'll just quote what's said in the slide: you do the right thing even when no one's looking, and that's the core of our integrity. Collaboration, I mentioned, it's a very important aspect, partly because we as a company grow by acquisitions as well. And when we acquire a new company, bringing that team, bringing those people together, collaboration becomes the key. And of course, we want to be bold. We want people to have ambitious goals. We want people to take risks and push the boundaries. And then, of course, while we do all that, we need to be responsible and deliver on, our yearly, our quarterly, our business goals. So get shit done. I'm going to skip this video. So who are we looking for? And again, I'm very privileged to be in this forum. Hope you guys appreciate what PayU is all about. And given that it's in a fintech space, given that it's about money, we are very, very, very driven through data and machine learning. So we need people to have entrepreneur mindset, passionate go-getters, take risks, and never stop learning. So that's what I think we're looking for as well. I think I have mentioned many of these before. We trust people, we share, we collaborate, we take risks, we take ownership, and we take real good pride in our diversity. So we are present in more than 40 countries. Like, there are more than 40 nationalities in PayU, and just interacting with them, just different cultures, different countries. That's truly great. Again, there was a video. Laurent is our global CEO, like I mentioned, but we're not going to play the video right now. These are some of the benefits. I probably am not the best one to talk through, but if you have any questions, detailed questions around some of the benefits, feel free. I'll be happy to connect you to our HR, and they can have you give detailed answers. But by and large, we do support mentorship. There's a lot of focus on learning. There are a lot of resources that process offers to all of its entities, including PayU, which enable us to help our colleagues learn. These include all of Coursera courses. If you want to do a nano degree through Udacity, and so on and so forth, and a lot of programs that run to make people network much more. And these are some of the D&I programs that we are running. And I have talked about development already. More than 5,000 plus training courses. They are free for anybody to learn. We have many programs, many series that help break down stereotypes, that help women in technology reach leadership positions, to network better, and so on. And one of the things that our HR has done very well is, if you look at the job descriptions, they are inclusive. They don't show gender bias. All right. So I think that's pretty much it from my side. Any questions? Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for your nice comment. Abhishek says, I learned many new things from this session. So hopefully, Jogi, I don't know, do you have the video that we can play? Or if not, we can close out unless there are more questions from people. Okay, I do have one more question from Preeti. Is there any vision for increasing the authenticity of transaction data coming via different ways like fingerprints or any other ways of checking authenticity? Okay, great question. So right now, so device fingerprint is something that PayU and its entities are working on. That's number one. We also have for certain merchants, we do get cookie information to kind of figure out whether the user is the same user or not. But I think none of a single solution is enough, right? So I think our strategy basically is to make sure, number one, that when we are integrating with merchants, the integration is such that the data that they pass to PayU is authentic, right? In terms of user identity, mobile number, etc. We also have information that comes from, let's say, you're using a debit card, right? So we get a card hash, card name, etc. And that's probably a very reliable information with respect to transaction authenticity. Then there is IP address, then there is location, then there are device fingerprints. So our vision basically is to be able to combine all these together to, number one, figure out the authenticity of the user, and then number two, figure the authenticity of the transaction. Second question, another question from Vigneshwar. The question is, since PayU have to refresh on a really huge set of data, are the models refreshed 3 months once, as it will take a huge time to retrain, or is it done chunk-wise? So even though the data is huge, some of the tools that we have now, make it fairly easy for us to retrain the model. So to give an example, one of the models, we call it so-called the new user model. We can potentially train it within 2 days. So we don't really work with chunks. The distributed processing itself is taken care of by the tool. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Pratima. Thank you for listening, everyone. So again, maybe if there are no more questions, I'll just close. Really, I hope I gave you a sense of what PayU is all about. Maybe if you haven't heard of PayU, you probably learned that it somehow touches your lives. and what we are in terms of a company, in terms of our presence globally, in terms of the work we do. We are truly a data and ML driven company. One of my goals is a number of models in production, and we truly look to deliver those goals that help the business. So hopefully data analytics, machine learning excites you. It truly does for me at PayU. And like I said, when you work with financial data, transactional data, the signal to noise ratio is much, much higher than, let's say, an ad or again, I don't mean to say those are bad, but it's very fulfilling for a data scientist to work with this data. So with that, maybe I'll close. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. You all have a great rest of the day. Bye now.
The digital economy is evolving at an unprecedented rate. Competition is increasing. At the same time, the economic and geopolitical future is unpredictable. In order to triumph, keep market share, and outrun disruptive business models, every player in every industry must have the eagerness to innovate. The victors will be those who harness the data-driven economy and turn it into simple, accessible, convenient products. The victory belongs to you, the PayUneers, and your work, every day, everywhere.
I listen to merchants' queries, analyze their issues, and help within 4 hours.
I monitor our system to ensure that all payments are processing well.
Eu gerencio contas, cultivo relacionamentos e transformo bons clientes em clientes extraordinários.
I help our global merchants choose the best solution and, what's the most important, guide them through all integration process.
मैं रखता हूँ इनकी सुरक्षा का ख्याल.
I bring merchants in and help them to unlock the e-commerce opportunity by understanding the PayU difference.
I offer innovative solutions to merchants for simplifying their payment processes.
I push boundaries to help execute plans that allow business teams to take risk.
I collaborate with product department to ensure safety management of merchant funds.
I build algorithms to help credit-worthy customers get more access to credit.
I am a PayUneer.
I am a PayUneer.
I'm a PayUneer.
I am a PayUneer.
I am a PayUneer.
I am a PayUneer.
Eu sou uma PayUneer.
मैं हूँ एक PayUneer.
I am a PayUneer.
I am a PayUneer.